the glorious new Disney Plus show, The Book of Boba Fett.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Giving us what we want straight off the bat.
At least now Boba Fett and Anakin have something in common, because I imagine Boba Fett also hates sand.
It's just impressive that he's still at the end of the episode managing to obviously take on that Machamp.
This sort of like Latin remix of the OG Cantina music. Oh my god, it's Max Rebo. Hello there, and welcome to episode 39 of Live from Vaders Castle. I'm Dan McQuarrie, and I'm joined by my co-host John Lee. How are we doing, John? Happy Book of Boba Fett release day.
Hello there, Dan. Yes, happy Book of Boba Fett release to you as well. What a time to be alive.
Not release day, because we're not recording this on release day, but release week.
Well, that one that'll go down the history books, no doubt.
Exactly. An important time in the Star Wars calendar. We're back to having weekly new TV episodes, and it's live action as well, so it's even more, not that animation isn't exciting, but it captivates the world more when it's live action, so it's an exciting time to be talking Star Wars again. Indeed.
And obviously this is this first episode 2022? Yeah, obviously.
No, the actual episode came out on the 29th of December, so it's just slipped into 21.
Oh.
This is our first episode of 22.
Yeah, this is our first episode of 22, and that's exciting.
Exactly. The podcast has made it into a second calendar year. You're now listening to Live from Vaders Castle in 2022 instead of 2021. How exciting.
I feel like 2022 is going to go down as a highlight year for Star Wars.
Oh, I think it is.
Book of Boba Fett kicking it off.
It's a big year.
Obi-Wan.
More Bad Batch.
More Bad Batch.
I think Andor's meant to be out this year. Mando's season 3 as well.
Yeah, it's going to be an unbelievable year for Star Wars. I think I'm very much looking forward to it.
I think it's 4 live action shows, 1 animated show. Hopefully, if it doesn't happen again, Lego Star Wars is going to come out this year. Obviously, loads of High Republic books, more comics, more new books that aren't High Republic books. Oh, lots of stuff happening.
Yeah, I mean, this new High Republic book comes out Tuesday.
Yes, I mean, I've had it for like 3 weeks because Waterstones in the UK just messed up their distribution and just sent us all copies so early, which I feel sorry for the people who are actually supposed to get advanced review copies, because they have more reach than us and get advanced copies. They can do their reviews. They got it after me, and I felt really guilty. But big up Waterstones, big up the UK, big up the Queen.
Yeah, and I ordered mine on Amazon like a week ago, and it says it will come on release day, just the 4th.
Oh, that's huge.
So I had to sadly wait. I didn't have the prevision to order on Waterstones months ago.
I know. I was warning you. I was like, big up Waterstones. We love Waterstones, and they pulled through. I may have already read it. I may have read all 350 pages in like 3 days.
Oof, must be good then.
So I'm gonna. I've got one token left on Audible, so I think I'm gonna get the audio book and then do a second consumption of the book before we do our Fallen Star episode at some point this month.
Yeah, that's good. Good idea. I think I've got a few audio tokens on my Audible. I keep forgetting to cancel it, so I'm just racking up tokens and not using them.
Well, I went to cancel it, and then they said, "Oh, we'll offer you a deal. You can have 3 months for like £4 a month." And I was like, "Oh, go on then." Like that's how they hook you. But I was just like, "That's a good deal."
Yeah, it was a good deal. Actually,
so they've got me for a little bit longer. But I guess that's a good point to officially say that our book club this month will be Fallen Star by Claudia Gray, the High Republic book. When to expect that, I have no idea. It will depend on John's reading speed and then my rereading speed, because I feel like I'm going to need to read it again, even though I literally just finished it yesterday. However, it will be out this month, and it might actually have to be for the first time in Live from Vaders Castle history, a bonus episode, because I feel like the Book of Boba Fett's not going to give us room to take a week off of talking about Book of Boba Fett to talk about a book. So we might need to do like me and John sit here and record for like 2.5 hours and then cut it into 2 separate episodes. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I don't think Book of Boba Fett is going to give us much free podcast time to discuss a whole, Star Wars novel.
Yeah, because Bad Batch had some nice sort of like 20-minute episodes where they like paired up quite nicely, so you could sort of leave 2 to do in 1 week. But Boba Fett, I'm suspecting we're not going to get any of that. So you will see Fallen Star at some point, but we are going to keep up the weekly Book of Boba Fett coverage until the show ends in February. So without further ado, should we dive in, John?
Of course, let's get going.
Kick it off, John. Tell us how you're feeling after 1 episode of the glorious new Disney Plus show, The Book of Boba Fett. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling confident. I think this first episode was a great first episode, introduction into what we're going to be getting. There was nothing crazy happening. I think my favorite, some of the bits that were outstanding and stuff. There was a couple of good action shots, and obviously the flashbacks about the Sarlacc pit and stuff like that. And then a few bits in between with the modern day, criminal underworld sort of bits and bobs. So I think it was a good opening episode to give us the information we need to keep going through the rest of the series without dragging it through many episodes. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it was giving us what we want straight off the bat, information wise and stuff things like that. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's one of those episodes where it's very much doing like a lot of the heavy lifting and the foundation setting for the stuff to come. And I think it did that really well. And I think they found themselves, I think, in quite a unique situation with the Book of Boba Fett, in the sense of with the Mandalorian, this was a completely new character. So they could just start the show wherever they want and kick it off in a big way. But I think with Book of Boba Fett, they had literally a book's worth of unanswered questions about what happened to Boba Fett. After episode 6, where has he been for 5 years? Why did he show up the way he showed up in the Mando season 2? How did he survive the Sarlacc pit? They had all these questions that they needed to answer. I mean, the show wouldn't have worked if they hadn't answered these questions that the fans have been asking for, nearly 40 years. And obviously it got answered in Legends, and we've seen the canon explanation of it now. But I do think they did a really good job of balancing, answering these questions that we needed answered, whilst also telling a really interesting, compelling story about Boba Fett, reinventing the character in this, not quite reinventing him in it's a drastic change, but this is a character who's been through a unique circumstance and they're going to come out of it differently. And I think that's what we're seeing with Boba Fett, reminding us of this side of Boba Fett that George Lucas tried to introduce to us in the prequels and the Clone Wars, of this sort of tortured orphan who loses his father to a Jedi and grows up in this sort of brutal kill or be killed world. So I think they've done a really good job of balancing sort of the OG Boba Fett with George Lucas's prequel Boba Fett, with sort of some of the Legends Boba Fett, and with this new Mandalorian Boba Fett, all mashed into one and set up all the story, all the stakes in one 35-minute episode, and then said, right, it's all going to blow up next week. That was the sense that I got. And I don't mean that as a criticism. I think sometimes you need that first episode to get back on track with the characters, and then the plot can really kick in afterwards. So I think I agree in the sense of, I don't think it was a mind-blowing episode, but I didn't need a mind-blowing episode out the bat. I just needed something to tell me who Boba Fett is in this show that we're watching right now. And I think the episode definitely did a perfect job of that. And I'm really, really impressed and really excited to see the rest of the show.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that first opening, 5 minutes, I suppose, I really liked. The shot opening of Boba in his back to tank, and then the flashbacks, so the shots of Camino, and then the ones of Boba holding Jango's helmet. Stuff we've all seen before, but then just seeing it in this context, flashbacks from Boba's while he's in this tank, is just it sends shivers down the spine, sort of thing, goosebumps.
Yeah.
It was very there's a few like iconic opening shots from Boba's like history that has like shaped who he is, I suppose.
Yeah, and also because it was set to the backdrop of just seeing like Jabba's palace, but like completely empty as well, which is anytime we've ever seen Jabba's palace, it's just been bustling with like all these scum and villainy, but now it's just completely empty, and it was just him and his back to tank having these flashbacks to his traumatic past. But the traumatic past that he's flashing back to is Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which is obviously a film that a lot of people grew up on. So that was a really, I agree with you, an exciting moment to see.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they obviously went straight to the answer of how did Boba get out of the Sarlacc pit. That's something that I think obviously everyone's been wondering for, as you say, decades, and it was answered in Legends and stuff. But to be honest, I think the Legends like answer for it is ridiculously stupid. Like, I hate it. I don't like it at all. I think it makes no sense
because he falls back in. He like gets out and falls back in.
Yeah, and like. I think it's stupid. And there's like one, I'm pretty sure it's like in a book where like establish like a telepathic link with someone else in the Sarlacc pit, and then you can control the Sarlacc, and he blows up his jetpack, and it's like, just shut up. Like, it makes no sense. It was
the 90s. Like standard, the 90s was weird.
Yeah, it's like standard like legend stuff, isn't it? That, it's just someone's just sitting there thinking, oh, this should be cool. And it's like, no, it's crap. So, in my opinion, I'll add that on there as a little before I get sued. But I think they did a good job answering it pretty much straight away in the first 5 minutes of the episode. You get the answer of how did Boba escape the Sarlacc pit, and I think it's a good answer. He used his wits, his determination, and some Mandalorian tech to get himself out, and obviously takes a oxygen hit from some unfortunate stormtrooper who's also fallen in, and then flamethrowers his way out, and then probably has to crawl his way through about 15 meters worth of sand to get out. So it's not like it almost makes it look easy, but I'm sure like obviously it's not when you break it down. Like he's clearly yet to determination and his strength and wits have all come into play to help him get out of this pit, which I think is obviously exactly how you'd want the story to go for how Boba escaped such a terrifying defeat or death. From his wits and determination, not some stupid telepathic link.
Well, we know that John's not gonna go back and read the original version. But I agree. I was really surprised that it happened straight away. Like, I sort of thought, for some reason, I thought they were going to sort of long it out and make us wait like an episode or two to actually see the Sarlacc pit. But it was just like, Jabba's palace, Camino, Geonosis, and then Sarlacc pit, like straight away. And I was like, damn, like what a way to open a show. But I really, really liked it as well. Firstly, I want to find out how that stormtrooper got in there. Not for like how did he get in there? That's a plot hole. Just purely because I think it'd be funny just to find out a story of, maybe a stormtrooper wandering around the desert and then he just trips and falls in the Sarlacc pit. Because obviously no stormtrooper ended up there during Jabba's sail barge trip out to the pit of Carcoon. So that little stormtrooper, he saved Boba Fett's life, so big him up. But no, I thought it was really cool. I liked the fact that, Boba essentially awakens, I imagine, maybe like a couple hours after he's fallen in. And he's just, regains consciousness, is probably, nearly passing out from sort of oxygen, and he's probably getting burnt alive by those digestive juices, which is why his face is so messed up. But then, he has to use his mind and his strength just to burn the thing down. And that's what I really loved about it. But I also just love that they didn't hang around on it. They didn't make it like too much of a deal. They were like, the fans want to know how he survived. It's the perfect way to begin this like flashback story, but let's not hang around on it. Let's get it done. Let's have him crawl out the sand, and then we're ready to go. And at least now Boba Fett and Anakin have something in common, because I imagine Boba Fett also hates sand after that ordeal.
Yeah, I can imagine he does. And I think, as I said, I did a good job getting straight to it, to the point, answering the question, and then, moving on to then South, what else he's been doing for the last 5 years. Because to be honest, it never really crossed my mind like what else he was doing when I really thought about it earlier. Because I was like, oh, he's in the Sarlacc pit. Obviously, there's the time difference about 5 years, and it's just like I never actually sat and considered. I was like, well, he's not been in the bloody Sarlacc pit for 5 years, is he? Because just starved to death by then. So it's nice that they've gone straight into answering like what else he was up to in these 5 years, and why is it taking him 5 years to resurface, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think the pacing on that, the backstory, and then I always like an episode where like the story has like two running timelines. I just find it very entertaining. How it switches between like present day and past and stuff.
Yeah, Arrow's a show that I really like that in. Yeah,
and I think this did a good job of keeping both those sort of storylines separate, but then like one didn't feel like it was like, overtaking the other, sort of thing. That you didn't like think, oh no, I want to go back to the present day when they were doing the past, but then when they did eventually go back and forth between the two, like it felt perfect, perfectly paced in my opinion.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That. Yeah, no, I thought it was really cool. Obviously, we saw him get robbed by the Jawas, which we knew happened from the Cobb Vanth episode of season 2 when he got Boba Fett's armor for Jawas. I didn't even think that we'd see it, but you just know that Jon Favreau was sitting there and just thinking, yeah, we're gonna get some more Jawas in here. Like, he loves it clearly. So seeing him get robbed by the Jawas was class. Like, I just think it's so interesting to see Boba Fett, which is a character that's been renowned for how tough he is. The Sarlacc has obviously taken a lot out of him. Escaping has taken a lot out of him. I imagine he probably burnt himself quite significantly when he was using his flamethrower. So, he's passed out. And then there's that moment where he like grabs the Jawa's leg as if to say, right, do you know who I am? And then he just gets a rifle butt straight in the face into these laughing Jawas, just leaving him there left for dead on the desert floor. I think if the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett has taught us anything, it's that Jawas are little bastards, and they really are. I mean, they robbed a poor man of his armor and left him in his pajamas after beating him around the head with a stick and laughing at him. Absolute savages. But I like that. I think that's a good way of showing this fall from grace that Boba Fett's had. And then the rest of like the flashback of this episode is about Boba Fett, proving himself again and doing it without his armor, which I think is another really cool sort of story trope, which has been used before, of like stripping a hero from the thing that gives them power. And are they still powerful? I mean, they did it in Spider-Man Homecoming, they've done it in Iron Man. It's quite a cool sort of story trope. I think it worked really well here of being like, this is Boba Fett in a desert with nothing. Can he still come out on top? And obviously this episode in the ending when he fights the Machamp, not the official canon name, does show us that he is still tough without his armor. So I think that's a really cool setup for the episode. Ties in with canon nicely. Everything all connects beautifully, and it also makes us hate Jawas more. So yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I think what Dave and Jon Favreau are doing is that they're making Tusken Raiders slightly more likable and Jawas more hateable.
Exactly.
Where they're going with it.
Although I have a theory that the little boy Tusken is secretly a Jawa, because there's no way that he's not a Jawa with the amount as annoying as that little boy Tusken is. He must be a Jawa, surely.
Yeah, he was rather Jawa, and I think he was a bit big for his boots. That little young Tusken. He thought he was a dog's bollocks. Yeah,
we will get into it. I'm sure we will get into that little Tusken.
Yeah, so, it was funny.
What did you think of this introduction of the Tuskens? And it was like they were the ones that found him, but he initially became their prisoner. And then this very like Western style story of like the natives arresting the cowboy and him being tied up. I mean, I love that beautiful shot of like him strapped to the log in front of the fire. That was literally ripped straight out of a Western. I thought that was really cool. What did you think of it being the Tuskens that found him, and how Favreau and that used the Tuskens in this episode? Did you like it as much as I did?
Yeah, I did. And I think it really fits in well with what we've seen from like the Tuskens, like previously, obviously in like the original trilogy and the prequels, they were slightly more savage than that we have seen them recently. But I think how they were in this episode really tied those two like portrayals together. So obviously, they kidnapped Boba, or like took Boba, tied him up, beat him. Was trying to use him as like a slave worker thing, which is something very similar we've seen in like the prequels with Anakin's mother. Obviously, probably very similar sort of actions there. But then, obviously, as the episode went on, once Boba sort of gained their trust and proved himself a bit, they showed a bit of sympathy, which is kind of similar to how we see in The Mandalorian. Like once you've proven yourself to these Tuskens, they'll give you a bit of respect, not quite like just the brutal mental savages that we saw in the original trilogy. So I think I really like seeing them. I think it made a lot of sense, and I really think that Favreau and Filoni are really doing well to keep the Tuskens moving in the direction that they were keeping them in like The Mandalorian, while also paying homage or like not changing them too much from like what we've seen previously.
Yeah, I think it's nice because we've talked about this before on the podcast, but the way that they're sort of selling them as a misunderstood group of people, in the sense that, the savages that we saw in the original trilogy and in the prequels, like they were that way, but it was also a misunderstanding of their culture. And, in their eyes, they are the natives of Tatooine and everyone else in Tatooine are trespassing. But also this idea that, when Mando and Cobb Vanth beat the Krayt Dragon, the Tuskens respect them and they respect the village of people that they had originally been pillaging, like Cobb Vanth's village, to agree, we'll leave them alone. So I think it's nice that they're sort of establishing this idea that like the Tusken culture is very much founded on like respect and like toughness. And if you can go out and beat, a monster that lives in the desert, then you're worthy of their respect and you're worthy of like not being hassled by them. And I think that was really nice to see. And I think the first time I watched the episode, we are jumping all over the episode here, but it's all to do with the Tuskens. When the episode ended on like the shot of like Boba Fett drinking the water, I remember the first time I was like, okay, that's an interesting, it's not like a cliffhanger really. It's sort of an interesting ending. And then I watched it the second time and I was like, actually, that's so like, it's actually really poetic, because it's like we've just seen, at least in the flashbacks of like Boba, beaten, bruised, these Tuskens just beating the crap out of him. This is not the bounty hunter that we knew. This is not like the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy. This is just some like shell of a man. And at the end of the episode, he proves that he is still Boba Fett. And then, there's little kids running around saying, oh yeah, I defeated the big Machamp monster. Like, it's all me and whatever. And then like the chief acknowledges, he's just like, I can cut through the bullshit here. Boba, I know it was you. Here, have the water and drink. And it's that like look of pride on Boba Fett's face of being like, right, these people respect me now. Like they're not going to beat on me anymore. Like this is my path back to power beginning right now. So yeah, I thought it was a really poetic way of handling it. And I've said so many times how much I love the way that Jon Favreau writes the Tusken Raiders. I think it's so cool. And I like that we're getting like different tribes, like this tribe where like the black cloaks instead of like the sort of beige or khaki colors that we see like the other Tuskens wear. So I thought that was a really cool aspect. Obviously we saw like the Massifs, and we actually saw women and children Tuskens in here instead of just the male Tuskens that we usually see. So I thought that was a really interesting aspect, and the culture of searching for the I think they're called black melons, I think the name that they've been given, but the pods in the ground with the water in it, that's such an interesting idea. So I could ramble on about Tuskens in this episode and the Mando verse in general for hours. But yeah, I thought it was really, really good that not only is it great for Star Wars lore, but also worked really well for Boba Fett's character.
Yeah, and I think that final shot, like, as you say, I think was really poetic and like iconic, because it's one of the first times in the show, I know, in that episode, that I actually just really noticed how like just beaten Boba Fett looked. And other times of the things he's like off doing something else, he's doing something that's like grabbed my attention or something like that. But like him standing there with that prideful look in his face, you can it's the first time I noticed that, obviously he's got his face is all scarred, but it's also like his chest is like covered in like burn scars and things like that. And it's like, it was the first time I really like, Jesus, like this man is taking like a beating over the last like however long he's obviously been on after breaking out of Sarlacc pit, as you said, like he's been covered in like the digestive juices, which are probably like burning away his skin eventually in places. He's might got some burn marks when he burned himself out, and he's been sitting in the baking sun for days on end, not just one sun, but two suns on Tatooine.
Man needs some moisturizer, seriously.
Yeah. So that really points out like why we see him in the back tank at the beginning of the episode, and then later on towards the end of the episode we see him like desperately trying to get back into it, and like it's clearly trying to point out like just how much he has he has endured over the last couple years. It's been 5 years since he obviously broke out the Sarlacc pit and stuff, and the wounds are still really there until he got into that back tank and healed himself. He was still suffering for that for 5 years. So it's just impressive that he's still at the end of the episode like managing to obviously take on that Mutt-champ fella you said earlier, and come out on top and still prove himself worthy of like the Tuscans' respect after such a clear and obvious like beating from the Tuscans and the habitat of Tatooine itself.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting that like in the present day he's talking about ruling with respect, and respect is something that was really big for Jango Fett. It was being respected for being tough and all that sort of thing, and legacy. And I think it's quite interesting that that's actually quite a similarity between Boba Fett and the Tuscans, is that he is the reason why he goes into the present day storyline of like wanting to rule Tatooine of respect. Has he learned this? Is this something he's learned from the Tuscans, of being like, actually they were all right to me once they respected me, and is the way of making people accept you by making them respect you, I guess. And we'll see where that storyline goes further down, but I think it's an interesting little sort of connection there that I think possibly is where they're taking that Tusken Raider storyline.
Yeah, it was it definitely plays a lot into like the present day Boba. As you said, he is more about ruling with respect. It's like, why he didn't kill the two like Gamoran guards he gets like presented with, because he wants them to like respect him instead of fear him, which is an honourable way of going about it, I suppose. And obviously it works out in the end when they capture him, or not capture him, they save him from the Mos Eisley. Is it Mos Eisley?
It's Mos Espa, I think.
Mos Espa, and bring him back to his back tank. Clearly they're very grateful that he didn't kill them straight away. So maybe this is like foreshadowing the success of his ruling idea, maybe.
Yeah. And I also think I think Boba Fett, they ran the risk when they were making a show about Boba Fett of like his whole character being, I'm a badass. Because I think obviously that is cool and it works, but when you actually want a story with some depth, you need your characters to have more depth. And I think George Lucas has, introduced depth to Boba Fett. Like the depth to his character isn't new in this show, but I think they're adding a new layer to his character and saying like, we're not just doing a show about a guy who wins every fight that he's in and he's a badass. We're doing a show about a guy who's been broken, beaten, fallen from power, and like, how is he going to like get back to that place? And I got a little bit of the sense of, like the flashback scene where he sees the Nikto gang like robbing the moisture farmers. I feel like when he was watching that, I almost felt that you could see in his eyes of him being like, this isn't right. And maybe it's that like the stuff that he sees in Tatooine for the 5 years before he comes back has like made him realize that Jabba's way of doing things was horrible. He was feeding into this like cycle of abuse and slavery and murder, and he needs to change things. And I think that's why I like when we see Boba Fett in the modern day, so we'll jump into talking about that now, that he still wants to be a crime lord. He says it himself. He says, well, I'm supposed to be the crime lord. He admits he's a crime lord. He knows he's not saying I'm a good person now. He's still a bad guy in the sense of he's a crime lord, but he's trying to be a crime lord who, hopefully people around benefit from him instead of just draining everyone. He says to Gossath Whip, the Twi'lek who owns the bar, he says, like, hopefully like your business will continue to prosper under my watchful eye. He wants, or at least we think, he wants people to prosper under his rule, and he wants people to respect him, and he'll give them the respect they deserve. So I think the difference that we're seeing in Boba Fett as a character, I think the flashbacks are really nicely explaining, and that's why I really, really like that. I really like the little bit of the modern day that we saw as well. What did you think overall of the modern day stuff in this episode?
Yeah, I liked it. I think it did a good job of setting up the fact that, Boba is new to being like a crime lord. Like, for his whole life, he's just been someone that was paid to do jobs, and he didn't ask any questions or really care about much else apart from just getting paid and doing his job. And now he's having to take on this responsibility of being a crime lord. And, there's a lot of extra things that come with that, such as, you have other people trying to take your place. Like constantly it's about finding a way to show your, like authority to people. But obviously the way Jabba did it and the way Boba did it are very different. So Boba's trying to work out how he's going to like migrate all those people that worked under Jabba into his way, I suppose. Which then was obviously very obvious in the fight scene just after he left the cantina with those 7 fellas that jumped him and Fennec. I'm assuming that's not much something that Jabba ever had to worry about. You didn't see very often that people jumping Jabba. It was more like secret assassins and things like that. It wasn't such like an obvious display of like disrespect as Boba had to endure in that fight scene, which then obviously he came out on top, but only just about, and with Fennec's help, and then he had to get carried back to a Bacta tank. So it's not like here, as you said, it's like a fight that he'd like won hands down. It was a struggle for him, and it adds some depth to his character. And as you said earlier, he's not someone who can win every fight now. One, because of what he suffered on Tatooine, and two, this is like a completely new like level of the game for him, I suppose. He's taken it up a notch, and he's going to have to put up with the extra threats and things that come with it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree. And I think the title of the episode being Stranger in a Strange Place completely applies to both the flashback and the modern day storyline. In the flashback, he's a stranger in a strange place, being like the desert of Tatooine, the Tusken culture. And then, as you said, like in the modern day, he's a stranger in the strange place because he's not used to being a ruler. He's used to just being a bounty hunter who gets paid to do a job, and he can cut in and out, kill who he needs to kill. That's it, done. Never really ask any questions. So I do think that thematically, this idea of being a fish out of water works really well in both parts of the storyline, and does work really well in the in like the modern day story. And I think I really liked how they did it because they used quite a lot of comedy. I thought the chemistry between Fennec Shand and Boba Fett is brilliant. I think those two actors play off each other really well. They've got like a good sort of banter, which is quite nice to see. Particularly, you don't see it that much. Sort of like a banter between a male and a female character, where it's not like a flirty banter. It's just like a mutual respect, but they like banter back and forth with each other. I thought that was really funny and quite rare to see in like American media nowadays, which is good. And I just think like they used the comedy really well to sort of show how out of place like Boba was, in the sense of, and Fennec as well. And Fennec in her job, she's, him saying, I can't remember what the exact line was, but her response just being like, should I kill him? And him being like, no. And him saying, well, I'm the crime lord, he should be paying me. And them going into Cantina and giving the helmets over and saying to Fennec, oh, you should accept their traditions and stuff like that. So they had this like banter back and forth, which was funny, and it worked for comedic effects, but it also showed that both of them don't really know what they're doing. They're completely new to this game. He doesn't know how to be a crime lord, really. She is quite competent at a lot of things, but being his assistant, some of the calls that she made was probably right. Some of the calls, like just getting the Gamorreans killed, would have ended up being wrong, and it's good that Boba didn't listen to her. So I liked that there's this like tension between them of like not always in agreement of what they should do, but she's always loyal to Boba, listens to Boba. Sometimes he should be listening to her more. Sometimes he's right in taking his own stand. And I do think there's that sort of interesting relationship between the two of them, which I thought was playing out really well. I really liked the part when they were talking about, as you were saying, like Jabba being sort of like carried about, and Boba said like he intends to stand on his own 2 feet, and he wants to be a different sort of leader. He doesn't just want to be, marched around, like paraded and everyone sort of worshipping him. He wants people to look at him and think, that's a man I respect. That's a man that I want to be in charge. So I think, the whole modern day stuff is really interesting, and I think it definitely sets up a lot of what's to come. I definitely have theories, and I think we'll get to theories probably at the end of the episode of where we think it might be going. But obviously, I'm assuming next episode we're going to meet this mayor character, who I assume is the Ithorian from the trailers. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought the mayor's major domo that we were introduced to was a really interesting character and quite sort of snarky in the way that he was speaking to them. And I guess we're sort of supposed to assume, and I think it's probably the case, that the mayor sent those assassins after him for sort of disrespecting him, because clearly the two of them are fighting over control of the same part of Tatooine, I guess. So really interested to see where it goes. Again, I'm very happy to see the Gamorreans coming in to save the day in that fight scene. Jon Favreau talked in the Mando season 2 documentary about how much he loves Gamorreans, and that's why he put them in Mando season 2. So I loved seeing the Gamorreans again. They were sort of like the unsung heroes of this episode, and there was a lot of great stuff going on there.
I think as well as you mentioned, the relationship between Boba and Fennec. It's like, I feel like just because Bob was trying to go in like his own direction with like his crime lord thing, I feel like some like the immediate decisions they think of to do first, especially maybe on Fennec's side as she's kind of following Boba's lead, is probably just some stuff they've seen like other crime lords do. We all know Boba used to stand in Jabba's palace and watch him do whatever shit he was doing. So it's probably
YouTube
his
tutorials.
First thought is, so their first thought is probably just to copy exactly what they've seen before. Anyone that disrespected Jabba was straight down in the pit to be killed in front of everyone, or taken around a barge to be dropped in the Sarlacc pit. Big grand gestures to make people fear him. But obviously, then as Bob was going in a different direction, that's probably where there's a lot of like hesitations on their own ideas, because they're like, this is a completely new direction for crime lords to go in, and this isn't what's the norm. So that's probably why there's a lot of debate between the two of them about what's probably the best idea. But I think it's probably a bit more towards a way of going back to the original Jabba the Hutt, just kill everyone that disrespects you sort of ways. While Bob was a bit more, I don't know, a bit more patience, I suppose.
And it's going to be interesting to see how this series goes out. Is Boba going to realize that he can't use the technique he wants to use because people like the mayor are going to fight back against him, and he's going to have situations like this where he gets attacked in the street in front of all these people? Or is he going to realize that his way is actually the correct way and he's just got to keep fighting through? And I think that's an interesting question that this episode poses, and definitely looking forward to see where it goes.
Yeah, true. I mean, that's going to be a big theme of the whole season, I suppose, and it'll probably be like the last few episodes where it finally get answered, I'm sure.
Yeah. Did you like the good old Fennec Shand chase sequence in this with a little bit of parkour and stuff? That was
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I do love a good parkour rooftop chase sequence.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Showed off a bit more Fennec's skills.
Yeah, she's a beast. She's a beast.
She's just easily following these two assassins. He gets the drop on them. I love it when she just like kicked that one off the roof as well. She was like, you could see in everyone's eyes, they were just sitting thinking like, she doesn't need both of us. And it's like, no, off you go. See you later, mate.
I found it so funny. I noticed it the third time when I just rewatched it today before recording. I just really laughed when Boba blows up the guy with his wrist rocket, just completely disintegrates him to dust, and then turns to Fennec and he's like, alive. And it's like, bro, you just disintegrated someone. You can't talk, mate.
That was actually a good fight scene as well. I think they did a good job of showing, obviously, both Boba and Fennec's skill, but then obviously, where Boba's maybe still a bit on the weaker side. He got the kind of jump on him. Some of those electric sticks. Although I will point out that some of those, when Fennec and Boba used their like electric staffs on the assassins, they went down almost like one hit. Well, Boba was taking a few to the chest with those.
Yeah, he's tanking it.
Yeah, it shows off his just absolute determination and willpower.
So, Tamara Morrison's been hitting the gym since he was in Mando season 2. Do you notice him? He's looking big. He's yoked. My guy.
Yeah.
Mate, if I can look in that shape in my 60s, I've done something right.
Yeah, he's been down the gym.
But I do think it's quite. I think the reason, because obviously when we see him in episode 6 of Mando season 2, like he easily deals with all those stormtroopers, and this is before this. And I think I did see a couple comments of like, you know, he got his ass handed to him really by these assassins, and you know the stormtroopers he dealt with really easily. Firstly, stormtroopers are stormtroopers. They're just, I mean, they're cannon fodder really. If you're someone as skilled as Boba Fett, you can plow through them, no problem at all. Boba Fett was wandering the streets of Tatooine, minding his own business, with a helmet full of gold, and then he gets surrounded by like 7 or 8 assassins, all having these shields, and they've planned it perfectly. So the two of them are trapped in, and obviously they've got tough weapons and everything. And him and Fennec still managed to win. So I think, you know, this idea that Boba is weaker, I think this was just an ambush that he was not expecting, and you know they still got out of it alive, and he had to go into the Sarlacc to heal up, because I imagine all that electricity pumping into him probably isn't good for his wounds and stuff. But I wouldn't say it's evidence of him being, you know, weaker than we saw him in The Mandalorian. It's just, this is still a guy who is still having to heal to get back to how he was. But this was a difficult threat. Like, these are pretty skilled assassins, which makes me question where they've come from, because, you know, they were pretty skilled.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty. I'm just he was comparing fighting stormtroopers against like skilled assassins. It's like being like, well, you know, Anakin Skywalker took on all those battle droids, but lost in a fight to Ventress. He got his ass handed to him. Like, okay, yeah, all right.
These fat shields that, like, he fired his wrist rocket at the shield and it flung him backwards. Like, they're not to be messed with, those little sort of energy shields.
Yeah, they were skilled assassins, and you know they went toe to toe with Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. Plus, they're outnumbered. Yeah, as you say, you know, they come well equipped.
It was the Gamorreans they couldn't handle, though. The Gamorrean that like sliced the assassin's neck. I was like, yes, get in, boy.
Yeah, they came in hard. They weren't messing about.
I loved it.
They went in.
I love this thing that like Favreau's doing of just like giving these like background characters from the original trilogy, or like background aliens, and like recontextualizing them, because obviously he's done it with Tuskens, he's done it with Jawas, now he's doing it with Gamorreans. He's turning around and saying like, Gamorreans are badass beasts and you should respect them. And after this episode, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm on Team Gamorrean.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. They were like the guards for Jabba the Hutt. You know, he didn't hire them for nothing. I suppose they probably were cheap and slaves, but
yeah, I guess we just thought
they served a purpose.
We thought they were weak because Luke dealt with them so easily, but really it's Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight, that dealt with them so easily. You know, anyone else, they better be scared of those Gamorreans. They're beasts.
Yeah, I mean, true. They did. They went in and just tore through as assassins. Like, they were just wailing on them with their, like, I don't know, swords, spears, or whatever it was.
Yeah,
they went in hard, weren't messing about.
Yeah, this was obviously being an episode directed by Robert Rodriguez. I expected the action to be pretty good, and I think we weren't let down. I think some of the fights with the Tusken Raiders were really cool. Obviously, the fight with the big beasts from under the sand, that was pretty awesome. But I do think the Western influence on this episode, and sort of the old sort of particularly like Robert Rodriguez, I believe, and I don't want to say this incorrectly, but I believe he's Mexican. I think. I hope I'm correct. I mean, I know he's American, but I think his background is Mexican, I believe. Hope I'm not wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But a lot of some of his films that he's directed in the past have focused on like the Mexican side of like the Western stories. So I think that there was definitely some like really interesting sort of, from the music to some of the way that the shots were done, of just sort of like feeling like that sort of like Latin side of the Western story, which I really liked. I thought those influences came through really well, and I thought they looked really cool. Obviously, I think this episode was written. Yeah, it was written by Favreau, directed by Rodriguez. I think the two of them work quite well together. So I like that combination. I like the visual style. I think the volume is definitely improving. Like some of the shots on Tatooine in the desert, like I couldn't tell at all that they were in the volume, whereas season 1 of Mando, you could sometimes tell. So I definitely think the volume technology has come a long way. Show's looking stunning. And then I wanted to talk about the score, because I didn't realize until I studied the credits, Ludwig Göransson is not he's not done the score. his role has changed.
Does he not?
Yeah, so when you read the credits, it's themes by Ludwig Göransson and then score by someone called Joseph Shirley. So I think what's happened, and I did a little bit of research about this Joseph Shirley guy. So he worked on The Mandalorian as something called a score programmer, but he also worked on Black Panther as well, which was also done by Ludwig Göransson. So I feel like the two of them have been working together for years. And it seems that like maybe Ludwig doesn't have the time to score the entire 7 episodes, but he's sort of written some of the themes, some of the motifs of the music, and then has left this guy who he collaborates with to do the rest of the work, which I think is really interesting because it feels like a Ludwig Göransson score, but it's actually not. He's just written the themes. So I think they've done a good job of it.
Yeah, they have. I thought it was Ludwig. But I don't know that. Yeah, I mean, did a good job, and
so I think he wrote like the main theme, like the one that played when like the title came up, the like do 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 do, like that one. I think Göransson wrote that one, and then the rest of the episode's been scored by this other guy. But he's done a good job of keeping that style, and it feels like he uses like the sort of like some of the chords from like the Boba Fett music from last season of Mandalorian throughout the episode as well, and then it just feels very like westerny, very like, as I said, like some of that Mexican influence comes through there, and then like obviously some of like the harsh Boba Fett stuff comes through as well. So I think they've done such a good job with the music, as per usual with Star Wars, never fails.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's only episode 1, but I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing that like behind the scenes gallery stuff they do, like they did with the Mandalorian stuff. I hope they do them for this, and I hope they do like a few episodes, and one specifically on like the music and stuff, because I really enjoyed that episode on the Mandalorian, like the music.
Yeah.
So that'd be nice if they do that again.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy. I just wanted to point out because I was just like, so Ludwig Göransson is involved, but he's not the main composer, but it is a long-time collaborator of his. So I think clearly the two of them know how to work with each other. So yeah, big up the score. I will come back to the score a little bit later when we sort of talk about theories, but I just want to go to our usual segments talking about characters. When we do these episodes, when we talk about The Mandalorian, when we were rewatching it in some of our previous episodes, we talk about our standout characters and our favorite background characters, and something that we enjoy doing, and seems that listeners enjoy it as well. So we're going to continue that with our Book of Boba Fett coverage. So we'll start with our standout character episodes. This is sort of, for people who haven't listened before, this is like the character who's sort of a main character in the episode, or a sort of a side character in the episode who stands out the most for us, whether it's in terms of, the dialogue, the action, whatever, but not, it's characters who typically speak lines or are involved heavily in the episode. So do you want to start with your standout character episode?
Yeah, go on. I mean, my standout character is old Fennec Shand, a character we've seen a few times in Star Wars media previously. But I just think, I was worried going into this episode or this series of how much of like a back seat she would take, sort of thing. Obviously the being Book of Boba Fett, and obviously everyone's waited like 40 years for some Boba Fett action and stuff. And I was really worried she'd get lost in the Boba Fett appreciation and love and attention. But I think in this episode, she did a fantastic job of, standing out and being a side, that main protagonist alongside Boba Fett in this episode. She was fantastic they bounced really well off each other, her and Boba Fett, in the scene where everyone's paying tributes. She has some interesting and, funny dialogue options there. It's not just standing in the background as like a lamppost. And obviously when they go out into the city and they get jumped, she is fully participating in the fight as well alongside Boba Fett. And then obviously the parkour scene, she brings a lot to the table in this first episode, which I think is really good. And I'm really excited to see where she goes in this season, because I feel like she could have quite easily just been a like piece of furniture in the background, while the camera pans up and down Boba Fett every 2 seconds. So I'm glad that she gets quite a lot of attention and manages to actually make an impact on this episode. So hats off to Fennec Shand.
Yeah, I agree. I think the last Mando rewatch episode we did, I think Fennec Shand was my standout character. So I think me and John we're both certified Fennec Shan fans. I think she's a great character, and Ming-Na Wen just carries that role so well. I think they've also like slightly updated the suit in this. Like the suit was looking crisp, it was looking clean. It was like, they look really good. So yeah, big up. I think obviously this episode didn't leave us with a huge amount of characters, so this might be the boring answer, but for me it's the answer. My standout character was Boba himself. Said it before on the podcast many times. Boba was never a character that was just like that I was never really a massive Boba Fett fan. Didn't dislike him. I was just always a bit meh on him till I started watching like the Clone Wars, Mando season 2, and started realizing there was more to him than just this guy who stood there and said badass lines. And I just loved how this episode really just took all those criticisms that you could have of Boba Fett's character, of saying he's, there's no guy under that helmet. He's just a, badass, with no substance, and said, no, here you go, here's a character with substance. I thought seeing Boba Fett as, as a broken guy after this, event that's happened to him, seeing him being beaten, broken, burnt under the twin suns, left for dead on the sands of Tatooine, all this, seeing him at the lowest we've seen Boba Fett ever, and then seeing him rise from that and proving himself, and then in the present day seeing him as this, like, he still feels, because of Tamara Morrison's performance, he still feels like Boba Fett to his core, but it feels like a new Boba Fett. And I think that's what makes it interesting, is we're starting to find out why he's a new Boba Fett, but we don't know 100% yet. And I think that's what continues to make the show really interesting for me. I think if this was, Boba Fett, in an arena fighting villains every week for 7 weeks, yeah, it'd be cool, but would it really be a great Star Wars story? And I think the show rests on a really interesting character study of who Boba Fett is now post episode 6. And I think we're getting that, but I also get the feeling that they're starting, because of those flashbacks of Camino and Geonosis, they're really pulling on all aspects of Boba Fett's character. This is a tortured soul who has, taken out the anger of losing his father on the galaxy for years and finally got his comeuppance in ending up in the Sarlacc pit. And who is this new guy who's emerged from that Sarlacc pit? So yeah, he was a standout character for me. Loved his fight with the Matt Champ. Loved just, there was a lot in the flashbacks of like Boba Fett not saying much. I'm sure you picked up on this as well, of just like silence. And he only delivered just a few lines of dialogues, but just the expressions on Tamara Morrison's face are so emotive, and they tell you so much without him having to say anything. And I just love, the moment when he turns to the Massive and says like, no hard feelings, mate, that killed me. I thought that was brilliant. So I just love everything that Tamara Morrison brings to Boba Fett. I love him in this show, and I'm just really, really excited to see where the show takes Boba Fett, because I think it really feels like a Boba Fett show after this first episode. It doesn't just feel like a tick list of fanboy wants from seeing Boba Fett in the past. It feels like, right, this is the Boba Fett of 2022, or this is the Boba Fett of 5 years after the New Republic. This is the character that we're going to get, and we're actually going to dive deep, and I appreciate that. So that was my standout character of the episode. In the show called Book of Boba Fett, it was Boba Fett.
No, yeah, I mean, as you said, there wasn't many choices, but I think what they've done with these two characters in this first episode has actually been very good. Like, they could have easily just, as you said, done just Boba Fett action shots for every 30 seconds, and people would have, I'm sure, clapped and cheered for it until probably about episode 5, and people would have been like, all right, let's go on with this now. So I think they've started off in the good direction for these two characters.
I hope one episode Fennec gets really badly hurt and she ends up in the Bacta, and then we have some like Fennec backstory as well. I think that'd be really cool.
Oh yeah, that'd be actually really good.
getting into prediction territory. Let's quickly do background characters, and then we'll talk about a couple of predictions before we wrap up. Can I go first on background character? Because I'm so excited to talk about this.
Yeah, so you're gonna.
I've tiptoed around talking about the cantina scene because I didn't want to talk about it. But come on, background character Max Rebo, the boy is back. I was so buzzing. We were watching when we watched Book of Boba Fett. Me and John and two of our other friends, Joe and Jack, we all got on the old Disney watch party thing where we all watched it at the same time, 8 a.m. on last Wednesday. And sort of we were all just watching along, put a couple of emojis here and there, whatever, a couple of comments in the group chat. But when Max Rebo popped up, I was straight on the group chat. I was like, oh my God, it's Max Rebo. And I think, was it Jack? Or one of them were like, who's Max Rebo? And I was like, oh, this is the GOAT responsible for one of John's favorite pieces of Star Wars music, the Jedi Rock song from Return of the Jedi. One of the greatest musicians in the Star Wars galaxy, and just seeing him back, he survived the sail barge. He's chilling in this new like sanctuary cantina. He's playing alongside a Bith who has not been confirmed to be figuring Dan of the modal nodes, but I'm hoping that he is eventually. They confirm that is figuring Dan, who's the lead musician of the modal nodes from episode 4 from the original cantina scene. At least in my head canon it is. He's teamed up with him and an astromech drummer to perform this sort of like Latin remix of the OG cantina music. It's perfect. It's the most brilliant, weird Star Wars nostalgia, but changing it for the modern day thing that we've seen in a long time. I love it. You can tell Favreau, Filoni, and Rodriguez were so gassed with themselves when they put this in the episode, and I just felt it. So I was just like, I've got to show my love for Max Rebo. Unbelievable stuff. Big up. The return of, I saw all the memes where like people just with pictures of Max Rebo and then the title Return of the King from Lord of the Rings, which cracked me up. I thought it was brilliant. So yeah, big up Max Rebo.
Yeah, big up. It's nice to see the return of such a legend. And it's nice to see he's moving up in the world ever so slightly. He's not working out that dump in Mos Eisley. He's gone up in the world.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a more prestigious looking place to be than Jabba's sail barge and Jabba's palace. So he's done well. And in my head, him figuring Dan and this astromech drummer have like come together to form like the Star Wars supergroup on Tatooine, and I love it. I hope we see them again.
Yeah, me too. My standout characters we've mentioned previously on this episode, but it is the Gamoran guards. For
big up.
Everything we mentioned in the previous stuff, obviously them just absolutely tanking their way through those assassins. But it's just nice to see them back on Tatooine and under Boba's rule. Hopefully they get a bit more glory and recognition than they did under Jabba, which I think they're already going to get. I mean, Boba seems to be treating them with some respect, and they're giving it back, which is what we'd like to see.
Although he wouldn't let them get hosed down and cleaned at the bar. I was disappointed in him for that.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably like, as he said no, they're like, oh, I was looking forward to that. Yeah, no, some good characters. As you said, it's nice to see that Favreau and stuff are like bringing back characters from, or like aliens at least from other older Star Wars episodes, and hopefully going to expand upon them a bit more.
Yeah,
so I'm hoping we see a bit more of Gamoran culture, maybe a bit more from these Gamoran guards before the series ends.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And in agreement, I hope that we get to see more of Max Rebo. I hope that Boba Fett and Max Rebo have a conversation about his new song and how Boba Fett really likes it.
Yeah, I hope he gets hired for Boba.
Oh yes, and come back to the palace.
Musician. Yeah, that'll be.
He says you can only come back if you bring back the I can't remember the name of the alien with the really long lips who sings that.
Oh, the Jedi Rock.
Yeah,
that's what we want. That is what we want.
Yeah, big up. My blue elephant friend, Max Rebo. I think the only other character that I wanted to bring up, not as a favourite background character, a standout character, just as a character that has got the fandom talking, is the little Tusken boy who beat on Boba Fett, constantly wound him up, made him dig for water, and then after Boba Fett saves his life, went around and claimed that it was him. I think he just needs a little bit of appreciation for the absolute audacity of the little bastard.
Yeah, he does. That man is, as I said earlier, getting too big for his boots. So, when he's running back to camp for like cheering, holding his head, and it's like, what on earth? You didn't even do anything. Like, you sat there like a little bitch while I was like saving your life.
I loved it. And I loved like the fan reaction on Twitter was like so split. Like I saw some people being like, this is my new best friend. And some people like, this little bastard needs to die next episode. I loved it. Such a Marmite character. I thought was brilliant. And I sort of like, I hate him, but love to hate him at the same time. And I thought it was almost endearing about how much of an annoying little child he is. Anakin definitely would have dealt with him quickly.
Yeah, Anakin would have had him. I'm surprised that the Tusken elders let them go out alone. Like they let this kid go out. Boba Fett. I know he's got like his dog with him or whatever, but still, they've clearly put too much faith in this fella.
It was a test. They were thinking, oh, we'll send him out with Boba and we'll see who comes back alive. They wanted to get rid of him as well. He was getting too big for boots in camp. He kept on like eating all like the food and stuff and not telling anyone.
Yeah, to be fair, that wouldn't surprise me. They sent him out knowing that Boba Fett would kill him. So then they can deal two birds with one stone there.
Yeah, so I just thought we had to mention that character because it was a funny inclusion. My one last thing that I want to add, I don't have sort of like a list of Easter eggs like I usually do, just because there's a lot and it takes a lot of time to get through it. So I think Easter egg wise, we'll just sort of mention things as we notice them. But this is one Easter egg that I did notice and I wanted to mention. The Rodian that we encounter at the little Tusken camp when Boba's like, Rodian, do you want me to cut your bonds? Which I thought was a great line. Is actually voiced by the great Sam Witwer. Did you know that, John?
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, that is class.
So Sam Witwer does the Rodian voice. Yeah. Perfectly well as well, which I think is incredible. So yeah, big up Sam Witwer.
I did not know that. Sam Witwer's, what an absolute legend that man is.
Yeah, I only saw it on Twitter because I follow David Collins, David W. Collins, whatever. The brilliant guy. He works for the Lucasfilm sound department, and he's worked on loads of Lucasfilm projects. And he tweeted out, little fun fact: the Rodian was voiced by my good friend Sam Witwer. So I just love this idea that Sam Witwer just gets dragged in to Lucasfilm sound to just record weird little voices, and you just sprinkle him about all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, although knowing Sam, from what I've seen on Twitter and interviews and stuff, it probably doesn't take much to get him down there. Someone just goes, Lucasfilm, he's like straight out the door.
I'm on my way. I'm coming in.
Yeah.
What am I voicing today?
Cloud behind.
And also, you just imagine they like, could you do Rodian? And then instantly he's just like taking a deep breath and he's just like suddenly in character as a Rodian.
Yeah, he's definitely sat there. He's sitting there at home, like practicing, just waiting for the call up.
So yeah, I thought I'd drop that little bit of fun in there just because I saw that on Twitter and I just thought it was too good not to mention.
No, that's a great fact. I enjoyed that.
Right. Well, I think we're nearly there to wrap up the episode, but I just kind of wanted to talk about if you've got any sort of predictions coming off the back of this episode about where we might be going. The only sort of little thing that I did want to talk about was if you listen to the credits all the way through, so like you listen to watch all the concept art part of the credits, and then when it goes to the black screen and the credits roll in like the traditional style, the score continues on like the nice Book of Boba Fett theme, which they have released on YouTube, and it's called like the Book of Boba Fett theme. So it's like the official theme, and it like kicks in to like what sounds to me like a exact same as the Crimson Dawn theme from Solo, A Star Wars Story. Have you had a chance to listen to this yet, John?
No. I haven't listened to the Crimson Dawn one in a while either. Yeah,
because if you just go on YouTube and type in like Crimson Dawn theme, it's this song. It's like and then like you go to the end of this, and then it like continues like the Boba Fett thing of like the sort of like the cool sort of like Latin vibes on it, but then it's like mixed in with what sounds exactly like the Crimson Dawn theme. So I don't want to speculate irresponsibly, but come on, that's got to say that Crimson Dawn's coming in this series, right?
I mean, yeah. If it is the same music, I'd say so.
It's too similar to be a coincidence, in my opinion. If it's a coincidence, it is the biggest coincidence ever. And the fact that no one picked up on it, that it might be misleading, baffles me.
Well, I mean, I think when I said it, when we were talking about Boba Fett's like biggest moments the other day, we were talking about like War of the Bounty Hunters and stuff. That's literally a story that's just intertwined Boba Fett and Crimson Dawn together. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is like a way to get people talking about the two.
So I've got a wild theory, and I'm going to put it out here. It's probably wrong, but I'm going to spit my wild theory out, and we'll see what happens. Are you ready for it, John?
I'm ready.
My wild theory is that the mayor that they're talking about is this Ithorian guy. He's part of Crimson Dawn, so he gets pissed off and sends out his assassins, who all happen to be wearing crimson robes. And they're pretty skilled, and they look a bit like the Crimson Dawn assassins that are in one of the Darth Vader comics from the recent War of the Bounty Hunters. So to me, they're Crimson Dawn assassins, right? So this conflict that he has with the mayor, the mayor's involved with Crimson Dawn. We find out more about Crimson Dawn. Cool. They're sort of a big part of this series. Whether we see Kira or not, I'm not sure. I have a feeling that maybe she's dead and someone else is running Crimson Dawn. Okay. However, who else could be running Crimson Dawn, you ask? This is where Dan McCrory's theory comes in. I reckon that Crimson Dawn has been taken over by someone who is trying to seize control of as much power in the outer rim of the galaxy as he possibly can. The great Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's ready to make his return. There you go. That's my theory.
And exactly where you're going with that. So you just said, get power on the outer rim. I was like, he's going to mention Thrawn.
It's got to be. Thrawn has taken over Dawn. There you go. You've heard it here first.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's particularly far-fetched. It would be very cool.
It's just because I'm thinking that like they've talked about how all these shows are going to interconnect into sort of like this climactic story event, like Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, sort of all going to be tied together. We know Ahsoka's going to bring back Thrawn. We know that Ahsoka mentioned Thrawn in Mando season 2, and like the outlier is Book of Boba Fett. Like, how could Boba Fett connect to this storyline that they're building up to? And maybe it's the fact that Thrawn is trying to gain control of the underworld, as well as the Imperial remnant that he's tying in with Moff Gideon, all that sort of thing. So that's my big, the meme of the guy with the board and all the little lines between it. That's my big theory here, that it all ties back to Thrawn through Crimson Dawn, because it rhymes as well. So poetry.
Oh, nice. I mean, if it does, I'll be the first to congratulate you, and obviously be very excited to see Grand Admiral Thrawn on live action.
Yeah. Have you got any little predictions or any? Do you think have any idea of where you think things might go in the next couple of episodes?
Not massively. I don't know. I feel like Boba Fett is maybe going to try and be slightly more proactive with his criminal underworld seizing of activities.
Yeah,
I feel like after this beating he's taken, he might want to be like, you know what, I'm going to go out, and the ones who are actually showing me disrespect first, they'll be the first to go and get his wrath, and we'll see some sick Boba Fett action scenes against those. I don't think it will immediately be the mayor fella who is the most obvious culprit of the attack. I feel like it might be a few lesser factions that are trying to kind of brush off Boba now that Jabba's dead, or Bit Fortuna's dead. But yeah, that's probably where I think it's going to go in the next few episodes. I'm not really sure.
I like that. Him trying to, he's been disrespected publicly, and he's got to put his foot down.
Yeah, without going like overboard with it, because obviously he's trying to be a bit more respectful, but obviously he can't be disrespected in public without having some sort of repercussions.
And then that's when he finds out that the person that he's going to deal with has hired Bosk.
That's not bad. That's not bad, chap.
Who knows? Right. I think we've speculated enough. I think we can probably wrap up the episode there, do you think?
Yeah, those would be for hours, I think.
Yeah. But overall, I think safe to say we're both pretty excited about the first episode and where the show's going.
Yeah, of course. Off to a flying start, I think.
Off to a flying start, yeah. Get live action Star Wars on the TV continues to be a cornerstone of the brilliance in the Star Wars universe at the moment. So big up Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Robert Rodriguez on that first episode. It was a banger, and I'm looking forward to episode 2 in just a couple of days.
Yeah, me too. And in those boys we trust, and I've got very high hopes for the next episode. And I look forward to watching it. Definitely.
Right. Okay. So that's our recap review discussion of Book of Boba Fett episode 1, Stranger in a Strange Place. So if you've enjoyed it, we will be back next week to talk about episode 2. So make sure you follow, like, subscribe to our podcast so that you don't miss an episode. If you have the capacity on your podcast app to leave a review, I know you can now leave ratings on Spotify as well. So if you have the capacity to do so, please leave us a review. It helps get the podcast out there to more people. You can follow us on Instagram at Live from Vaders Castle, Twitter at Vaders Castle Pod. We're Live from Vaders Castle on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok. So we're all over the place. If you want more from us, for the book fans, I'm going to have a review, very, very spoiler-free review of The Fallen Star out. Probably, I think tomorrow is the day when people who are supposed to be able to post early are allowed to. So I'm just going to do it at the same time as them so I don't look dodgy, even though I got the book 3 weeks early. So I have a review for Fallen Star before me and John do our detailed review with spoilers in a couple weeks' time. So that will be on Instagram at Live from Vaders Castle. And that's everything from me.
Yeah, that's everything from me here. Thank you very much for listening, guys. See you next week. Goodbye.